Welcome to Lifelong Running, the channel where time doesn't slow us down, it just adds to our story. I'm Ian Hunter, a professor of exercise science at Brigham Young University, a biomechanist for USA Track and Field, and a successful runner from 800 meters through the marathon. They say age is just a number, and when it comes to running, I believe that truly is the case. We can use that number as a motivation rather than a deterrent. Instead of seeing age as a limit, we can view it as an opportunity to redefine our goals, refine our training methods, and embrace new challenges. Every year adds to our experience and wisdom, both of which are valuable assets in running and in life. As we go through the next few months, I'll have videos on strength training, nutrition, recovery, injury prevention, running mechanics, psychology, race strategy, and some other areas that'll be of interest to you. For this first video, I'll share with you some methods that will help you generally in extending your ability to slow the decline of performance as you run through the later decades of life. In 2018, I ran the Boston Marathon. Some of you may have experienced that year for all the challenges that were in place. The temperatures were near freezing, there was rain just dumping down the entire time, and headwinds that averaged around 15 miles per hour the whole way. So it was a really tough day. There were around 2,500 people needing medical attention for hypothermia, and a lot of challenges that day. Now, I tried to make some adjustments of pace and think I chose it correctly, but a group of 7 of us were running together. I was mostly just hiding out in the back of them as we went, trying to do some drafting with the strong headwinds. But around mile 9, instead of rain just dumping down on us, I don't know actually the words to use to describe more than that, but it was such a heavy rain for 2 or 3 minutes that I felt my body getting cooler inside, not just my skin getting cold. That was already cold. But we kept the same pace going for a while longer. We got to about mile 15, and then it happened again, just this enormous downpour. And again, I felt my body getting cooler. And I went from running in the, I think we were around 5:45s to like 7-something pace. My hip flexors just weren't bringing my legs up and just felt terrible and cold. I think one of the issues is the blood was being shunted towards my core to keep me alive rather than helping me run fast. So blood flow changes going on. My heart rate actually increased even though my pace got quite a bit slower. And I remember looking over to the side and seeing Heartbreak Hill Running Company. And I looked at that and thought, is that before or after the Newton Hills? And I honestly couldn't remember, even though I'd been on that course a few times for training and racing. And as I kept moving along thinking, I'll just keep going and I'll eventually get to the end, didn't care what the time was anymore, I got to mile 21, where we're actually through the hills, and I still had no memory of ever going up or down anything. I just was trying to move. And at mile 22, I thought, okay, 4 miles to go. I'll slow, grab my drink, recover a little bit for a few steps, and then just push through a mile. Then I'll have 23 miles done, and had that plan. But I grabbed that water bottle, took a little drink, realized rather than just slowing down, I was actually walking now. I looked over and saw the medical tent, and with just a real quick thought, went from 1 more mile at a time till I'm done to I need to be getting help. And I ended up in a Boston University dorm where a few people were great helping me out there. I was hugging a hot water bottle. They put one on my neck. I was wrapped in blankets trying to get warm, and was just shivering so much I could hardly speak. So I'm glad I did stop that day. I think that was the right choice. Eventually warmed up enough to call my wife, let her know that I'm alive and I'm going to be fine. Got a ride down to the finish line and then into the hotel, and started my recovery. I got up the next morning and I have no memory of being so sore at the end of or the day after a marathon. Even though I ran relatively slowly and didn't even do the whole thing. But I was so beat up, I think because of those blood flow changes that were likely going on. On top of that, my left foot was really sore. And I'd had a little bit of arch pain in the training cycle that go through, but nothing that was real meaningful. But that day turned it into plantar fasciitis that I could not get rid of for 2 years, trying mostly cross-training and trying cortisone shots and Graston therapy, all kinds of different treatments, hoping something would work. And it just wasn't getting better. So after 2 years, I got surgery where they did a medial release. They cut through the medial half of the plantar fascia and left the lateral edge. And then over a 3-month recovery, the part they cut through gradually filled in and rehealed and was strong and healthy, but a little bit longer, and the stress on the back of my heel was not there anymore. So I was able to gradually start running, and a year later returned to the marathon, did the St. George Marathon 3 years, a little over 3 years after that Boston day. So it was a challenge getting through the discouragement of being injured for so long, but I was so excited to get through a training cycle and be healthy enough to race again. So that went pretty well. I didn't really know exactly what time goal to set. Based on the training, I set it at 2:25, but had a tough last 10K and slowed a bit. I ended up running 2:27:12 and was very happy with the day. I was able to finish a marathon and not be injured at the end of it. So a stats paper that I read around that time said after age 50, it's about 2 minutes slower per year that a marathoner should expect if they follow the averages. And as I thought about that, I first realized that's a bit discouraging, getting slower with age. But I thought, well, it's probably good to accept that there are going to be changes with age as we look at our performance, but that doesn't need to be a negative thing. Our bodies change, and can we make it so we change at a different rate than someone else? And I got that in my head of, let's try to make it so I get 1 minute slower instead of 2 minutes slower per year. And I'd consider that a successful accomplishment if I could reach that goal. So going into the next year, I had a little bit better training cycle. I was gradually building more and more post-injury, and realized I made a bit of pacing mistakes on that prior one and decided to some adjustments to make. And instead of trying for a minute slower, I actually set a goal of a minute faster, considering all the changes that had gone on. So a minute slower with age, but 2 minutes faster for the training that I'd gone through was the plan. And went through that one, still had a tough time the last 10K, but didn't slow as much. I ended up 2:26:06. And again, happy. Getting faster with age isn't what most people experience. So going into the recent year, this is now 2023, 52 years old, and decided to do St. George again. It's one that I've loved for years. It's the first marathon I did when I was age 36, and just love the experience there and the people that I get to interact with. So went back for a third time post-injury, feeling fitter than I'd been in recent years, and set a goal of 2:25, trying to go 1 minute quicker again. And got to mile 18. I'm thinking in Ks. So got to the 30K mark, 12K to go, and thought, I don't remember feeling this good in a marathon for a long time. I definitely didn't feel good, but relative to that time of the race, thought this is going to finish well, and started pushing the pace a little bit more and had a really good solid finish. Goal was 2:25. I finished in 2:23:45 and could not believe that that time is what I was really seeing. I was checking my watch, checking the clock, getting the result printed out just to see, is this really right? Once that was done and I thought about it for a while, looking at the time at the end of the day, I thought, well, what led to that? And I came down to 4 things that I think can be of a benefit to you. Primarily, I was returning from injury still. Even though it had been 3 years of returning, I was gradually able to do more and more without other body parts becoming injured. So I was definitely fitter because of more time of training, but the key to focus on in that is it was a very gradual progression. I didn't try to do it all at once. Another focus was strength training. It's very difficult to fit in all the strength training that you may be interested in performing as you're trying to accomplish marathon training, family time, employment, church activities, whatever other things might be going on in your life. So it can be hard to fit in and add some strength training on top of that. But I knew I didn't want to get injured again. I wanted to keep my plantar fascia healthy so I could not have that set me back another time. So I got with our strength coach here. His name's Braden, and he was happy to set up a training program for our marathon group that we have here. And he wrote it customized specifically for me to focus on injury prevention, along with getting some explosive strength built back in that I may have lost with age or the time of cross-training and not running the way I was wanting to. So I'll give a detailed description of the strength training program that I currently do. It is cyclical depending on where we are in the training program and within a cycle of training for marathon versus other times of the year. One of the big focuses, though, was isometric conditioning, which does seem to show a real benefit towards tendon health. But then we did other things to focus the training block specifically to what the needs were as we go. So I'll create a video later on that topic. Another great factor is pacing strategies. If you're on a flat course, then an even pace for long distance, say 10K through marathon, is likely where you're going to run the best time if you choose the right pace. And we'll look at how to choose those in future videos. St. George, Boston, those are the only 2 marathons I've actually done. Well, I have done one in Japan that was up a canyon and back down. But these courses with hills, we need to make different pacing strategies depending on which segment of the race we're in. It's not just equal effort. The uphills and downhills with equal effort, that won't be your best outcome. So a few years ago, Jared Ward, who's one of our partners here for training, a very successful marathoner, got 6th place in the Olympics in Rio in the marathon and still running well today. He did his master's degree in statistics, and his thesis was some data I was able to get from the group in St. George that had all the split data throughout the race, along with their entry times and finish times. Jared was able to work with his advisor there and create a model that could tell us the right pacing strategy for the St. George Marathon. We've applied that more recently with more splits. Back then, they only had 10K, half marathon, and 30K. Now they have some other additional 5K splits along the way. And we were able to create a program where you can enter the time goal, and it will give you the optimal pacing for each split along the way. And I studied that thing for the weeks going into the race, refining what my time goal would be. And then the week of the race, probably spent about 4 hours looking at the results of that predictor and previous races I'd done where I had my GPS data showing the splits along the way and making little adjustments. And it ended up I needed to start slower than I had the 2 previous years to run a faster time of my goal for that current year, 2023. And I was trying to convince myself, this is right? And it was a struggle, but I did convince myself with the help of talking to Jared and Connor and Clayton, the rest of our training group. And so the day came, and I had the 5K splits memorized and ready to go. And I determined to not get more than 5 or 10 seconds off until 30K. And then based on how I feel, do whatever seems right. And I stuck to that plan. And the pacing worked out perfectly that day. Good, strong finish to the time that I ended up with. The 4th item is footwear. A lot has changed over the last few years with footwear, especially from about 2017, where the Vaporfly 4% was released and available to the general public. And we've done a lot of testing on footwear in our lab here at BYU. And we have a nice partnership with Saucony where they've been providing shoes for the studies that we do here. And there's been a great progression in every company that's creating these, what we call super shoes. There's a lot of options out there now. And one thing we've learned is it's not the same shoe for every individual. And each year things come out, it might be a different result for what is best for you specifically. I've settled in on the Endorphin series with Saucony, and I've had great responses when I do the treadmill testing here, looking at the energy cost of running. You know, the original Vaporfly 4% was because 4% less energy cost in running, measured by oxygen measurements that we can do here in the lab. We replicated that original study and we got 3%, which again showed these shoes really work. So we're excited about that. Now there's other companies creating really fast shoes and everyone's battling out, trying to figure out how can they make them better. So I believe getting good footwear is one approach to helping limit the decline of performance as we grow older. So the recent years, I was using the Endorphin Pro 2, then the Endorphin Pro 3, for Boston in between, which was kind of a rough day this year, but for me anyway. I was wearing the Endorphin Elite, and then this most recent St. George Marathon, I was able to get a hold of a prototype from Saucony that has a new type of foam that seemed really effective for me. So it worked well for me in the lab and ended in a great performance for the day. So as we go through these next few weeks, let's look at a variety of topics. I'll try to make the videos anywhere from about 5 to 10 minutes will be the goal, and hopefully have some interesting ways to help you in your progression as a runner.